Hey y'all, welcome to Dark Sugar Podcast. It is your host Kiana, and today we're going to be talking about trauma. So I don't think I'm going to be going into details of anything, but emotional, physical, sexual abuse, trigger warnings for all of those, and just talk of trauma in general. I've been sitting with my trauma like no other. Like, when I say sitting with my trauma, I think for the past week or so, I have really just been really by myself, like not really talking to anyone, like my friends, about it. Spending a lot of time alone, journaling, and I've been reflecting on my life's trauma, the traumatic experiences of my life that I feel like have shaped me in ways that are really extraordinary. It's really interesting. Just how things can affect you, is really interesting. I think it's really dumb and it's very hurtful to just assume that people, or even that you, go through life without anything affecting you. We like to think that we're able to shake things off and just continue, and trauma is unique. Two people can go through the same experience. One person can come out with PTSD and the other person won't have PTSD. But I think I've been reflecting so much on my trauma because I'm in a point in my life where I feel very at peace. I feel like I've done a lot of healing. And I'm kind of in like part 2 of processing. I've done EMDR, which is a form of trauma therapy. It stands for, I always forget what it stands for. eye movement desensitization reprocessing, something. Super helpful, highly recommend it, especially for traumatic events, such as psychological abuse and physical abuse, but especially psychological. Oh my god, it's so fucking helpful. But as I've been sitting with my trauma, I just want to reflect and talk to you guys about what I've been realizing, because some of the things I've been realizing are hella basic as in it's like, well, duh, but but it's like I finally, I don't know, and it's so amazing. And I honestly have to credit a lot of these reflections I have to this book. It's called The Gift by Edith. Let me get her name right. Edith Eger. And I'm going to tag the book and repost the book and everything, because currently, as we're doing this, the Edith Eger. Yes, I'm going to. She's still alive. She's 93. Yeah, I'm going to link this book. It's been so inspiring. She's a Holocaust survivor therapist who, through her experiences and the experiences of her patients, have just, wrote her own reflections, and her reflections are right where I am. So I felt like this book was meant to be. My cousin recommended this book to me, and I was just in such a place to receive it. And I've been reflecting on my trauma in a healthy way. I've been seeing a lot of posts and reading a lot of articles about, reflecting on trauma, and you're just going in circles. You just keep thinking about the scenario. You keep thinking about it. And you're kind of like hurting yourself thinking about it over and over again. That's not what I'm doing. I'm more of reflecting like, where was I in this moment where I allowed this situation? How was I feeling in this moment? Because, yo girl is a freezer, right? Fight, flight, freeze. And then there's another one that there's like a new one. Fight, flight, freeze. I I have to look this up. You know me. I just can't let this go. Fight. And these are like fawn. And these are like body. Yeah. And these are responses. Oh my God. And I'm a fawner. Ew. Okay, I do that too. So I'm a freezer. So when something's happening that's traumatic around me that I get triggered by, I will literally like just sit there. And I'll just be thinking, processing, like, holy shit, I can't believe this is, and it's almost like I can't think, I can't move, I just sit there. So like when I was growing up with my mom and I was little, my mom is diagnosed with BPD, and growing up we were in a very stressful financial situation, stressful family situation. And so I was the punching bag, and it was just me and my mom. I had nowhere to go, right? So I would freeze. I literally couldn't do anything. And you know, if you're an empath and you don't really have a strong personality, when someone's popping off and they're yelling and they're having an episode, it's like, what am I supposed to do? Scream back at you? Like, yeah, I'm gonna sit there and just, you know. And unfortunately I was absorbing everything she was saying and doing. And even with the situation with my dad, you know, my dad is a former drug addict, and he was in and out of my life, and he was homeless, and I didn't know he was doing drugs at the time. But you know, that also obviously had an impact on me and shaped my life, gave me the baseboard of my life, right? And so literally I'm 26 years old, you guys, and I literally thought that I'm 26 years old and I thought that my upbringing was my fault. I thought my upbringing was my fault. And let me break this down, because this is really complicated for me. I'm like getting goosebumps talking about it, because it's just so unreal to think about. But growing up, the situation with my mom, I don't know why. I fucking hate this. Okay, actually I do know why, but I don't know why, but adults would have the hardest time sympathizing with me when I would explain to them the situation with my mom. And some adults, maybe like one or two, would get it and they would understand me, but most adults would kind of blame me for being in they would be like, well, why do you let your mom talk to you like that? Well, what do you say back to her? Well, well, you're living with her, so you have to do what she says, literally. I don't know. I would just get like very weird comments that would throw the situation kind of back at me. And now that I'm 26 years old, I'm like, why the fuck were they doing that? Why were these adults putting this situation on me? Like I could really, like a 12, 11, 10-year-old, 10-year-old could really say something to an adult woman who's my mom, who's screaming at me. Like that was put on, that was put on me. And I don't know, like even I'm not gonna lie, you guys, like I've even had some therapists throw it back at me. And now that I'm 26 years old, I'm like, wait, that shit wasn't my fault? Now, what is my responsibility is what I do with my life and my healing. Like, I understand that is my responsibility, but actually, like, my mom being my mom and my dad being my dad, that shit's not my fault. And how they behave and how, you know, that's not my fault. And their behavior as parents is very influential, if not literally the base of me as an adult. And of course, it's my responsibility, and I have my own personality, whatever, to shape myself and my impact on the world. But it is not my responsibility to like mend things with my parents or make things be okay with my parents if they're the ones that, I don't know, you guys. I was just so fucked up. And I put that on me. and the things that would happen because of my mom or because of my dad, or the situations that would come up, I would really put that on me, be like, oh, this is my fault. Everything around me is my fault. Like, the way this is happening is my fault. And now I'm like, wait, that shit wasn't my fault. And you hear that with sexual assault victims. Like, of course, it's never their fault. And, victims of physical assault, in abusive relationships, like, of course, someone's like physically attacking you, and invading and being, violating your space. And with emotional abuse, I feel like it's harder to explain and it's harder to see. And, it's very individualistic. How could someone's words have so much impact on you? And then being an empath, you just soak that shit right up. Me. I just soak that shit right up, being a punching bag. That's what it is, being a punching bag. And I've been in a lot of punching bag situations, and because I'm a freezer, I just sit there. And I remember a therapist in college, like literally one of the best therapists I've ever had in my life. She was so eye-opening for me. But she said, she's like, we will probably never stop you from completely freezing, but she's like, we can cut your freeze time in half, and meditation helps with freezing, being more aware of how you're feeling, because what happens when you freeze is you're disassociating. I'm literally having an out-of-body, this is my survival tactic. I can't handle my mom screaming at me or what's happening, so I'm gonna just disassociate, and my body literally I'm like, if I don't move and I just wait till this is over, it'll be fine. It's literally like an animal. Like, have you ever noticed? I always notice this, and I thought this was weird, like watching Animal Planet or whoever, like I would just see animals, and some animals, I guess predatory, am I saying that right? Predatory animals are more likely maybe to not do this, but I see a lot of animals where when they're threatened, they just stop. Like deer. And you're always like, why the fuck do they do that? With deer, it's just funny because I think they're just too big not to be missed. And so it's like, dude, you just have to get out the way, and like no one can go. But with deer, it's the same thing. They're freezing, fight, flight, or free. They're not fighting, they're not leaving, they're just standing there frozen, and they're just hoping. And we see that, I think mice do the same thing. I think some reptiles do it, where they're just like, if I don't move, it'll be fine. But I have to realize that response isn't a healthy one. Because there are some situations where people say things that I don't like. Not that I don't like. Sometimes people will literally say things that hurt my feelings, and I'll freeze. Bitch. And then like a week later, I'm like, I didn't like that. I didn't like that. And in those situations, it's like, okay, you can't really do that. But I have control over, working on myself and my responses and how I respond to the situations around me. But the situation wasn't my fault, bitch. I'm giving myself so much grace, you guys. I'm just letting up on myself. I'm practicing being so kind to myself. And it's like, because I was other people's punching bag, I became my own like punching bag. And in order to make sense of my situation, I had to be the bad guy. It had to be me. That was the only thing, because if these people around me are making me feel like it's my fault, to make it make sense that it's my fault, I must be stupid. I must be this. I must be that. And that's the next thing that I've been realizing. Your perspective on your trauma, holy fuck, like perspective is everything. And it's crazy because it's not like the shit didn't happen. It did. But what were you telling it's like even just the other day, right? Like, thankfully, my mom's gone to therapy. Our situation has gotten better. We're in a better space. She's grown. I've grown. She does a lot of self-help work. Our relationship's a lot better. But there's still some days where my mom, she might pop off. Okay? And it's like, she popped off, yes. Made me feel some type of way, yes. But how am I going to respond to this moment? What's my perspective? What am I telling myself? Am I telling myself that her popping off is my fault because I'm a bad person, because I'm stupid, because which is what I used to do when I was little, right? When someone would react to something and it would be directed at me, I would literally interpret that as, it's because all these X, Y, and Z negative things about myself. Or is that person just having a bad day? Or is that person just projecting onto me? Or is it just whatever? I don't know, not my business. I'm moving on with my day. You know what I mean? And so in my reflection, I've been really looking back at situations, and I've been asking myself, what were you telling yourself? What was the narrative you were telling yourself? This situation, how did it make you feel, right? Because when I freeze, half the time, I'm not really aware. I think I'm sitting there processing what's happening, but I'm not. I'm like, it's my processing time is just like, it's just too painfully slow. And as I'm sitting there, and either maybe someone said a comment I don't like, someone yelled at me, I needed to speak up and I didn't, or I'm having an emotional response, or like whatever. It's really just the narrative. It's just so amazing. It's almost like the vantage point, like you're looking at the situation in a different way, and you're realizing different things about it. And I think EMDR really helps me with that, because it allows me to just really slow down and process. Because the thing about trauma, it's like, it's not like it didn't happen. We're not saying it didn't hurt, but we don't want that hurt, that pain from 10 years ago or however long ago. We don't want it still debilitating you and affecting you on such a level in the present moment. And I'm not saying that changing your perspective won't. It helps. It's baby steps. It's not like it'll do a 180 in like a couple of days just to look at something hella traumatic in just a different way. You know what I'm saying? Because for me personally, having PTSD, first of all, I feel weird even saying that I have it, because I have not been to war. No, it's not from my car accidents. No, it's not from like something crazy. No, I haven't been shot. It's from emotional abuse. And because of that, I cannot, loud noises, and it's loud, sudden noises. So thunder, I can't handle thunder, fireworks, and an extension of things. But sorry, I was looking at my arm. There was like something weird on my arm. Anyway, oh shit, I forgot what I was saying. Oh no, what was I saying? I hate when this happens. PTSD, emotional response. Okay, so it's like yes, sometimes I still have emotional responses. Sometimes I still cry randomly if something's too loud, or if I'm like suddenly surprised or shocked or whatever. But healing with trauma, these little things, me reflecting, journaling, therapy, talking, doing this podcast episode, all these things are helping with my healing. So because I think with the trauma after goes the healing baby steps, and they are baby fucking steps. Monumental, but like very small. So like, I feel like every day I'm realizing something new, or as I meditate more, as I journal more, and it feels like you're just getting yourself back together. Oh, and another thing I wanted to touch on is back to perspective. I think this is what I was about to get into. Back to perspective, what you tell yourself, because okay, what you tell yourself is really important, because the therapist that I had in college, she literally told me, oh my God, I remember when I realized this, I was so depressed, because I was like, wait, what the fuck, you're telling me? It's like wild. Okay, so she told me, she's like, Kiana, like, you were telling yourself this narrative of, you know, that was fueled with very negative self-talk. You know, I was telling myself I'm ugly, I'm not like everybody else, I'm dumb, I'm not gonna amount to great things, I'm not smart enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not confident enough. Like, I was telling myself this whole narrative, right? For years at a time. And she was like, and I remember I was struggling, so I was like, I still think these negative things about myself, and it's so hard, and I'm trying to tell myself that, you know, these positive things, but what the fuck, is so hard? Why do I think so bad about myself? Because I knew it sounded ridiculous, and I was just like, what the fuck? And she was like, you've been telling yourself the same narrative for years and years and years and years and years. She's like, your brain is like a computer. She's like, think about inputting the same equation or algorithm or whatever in a computer for years. She's like, if you wanted to undo the whole thing, it's going to take that amount of time of you inputting the right algorithm or the healthy algorithm to get better or to change the whole system. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, this negative self-talk, and it has been years. She's not lying, and I can tell I have way more years to go, but I have gotten so much better. But it's no lie, like, it has taken me, like, I'm still my self-esteem is still struggling up there, but it took me years to get to this point. And it is because, like, wow, yeah, what I was telling myself, it's like I have the, you know, like, it's like someone cleaned my glasses off and I can finally see clear. I don't even wear glasses, but, like, you know what I mean. I can finally see clearly, and I'm just like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, I've been telling myself, it's like I'm irritated with myself because I cannot believe. And that's the other thing of trauma. You look back and you're just like, really, Kiana? Really? Like, you let that slide? You just sat there? And that's where I have to be really kind to myself, because what I was telling myself is what allowed the situation to negatively impact me. So, and I'm talking about emotional trauma specifically, because that's what I've dealt with the heaviest, and it's what impacts me the most. And y'all, it's the hardest to explain, because it's not like, and I'm not saying like physical abuse is any easier or anything like that. I'm just speaking from emotional abuse. But I know that it's really difficult to explain to somebody that so and so said this and it made me feel this way, especially when what they said didn't matter, and maybe just triggered me or in some way, or it was manipulative, and I can't. Oh, that's the worst. The worst is when someone's manipulative or when they gaslight you, and it's kind of subtle and you can't explain it, or you don't pick it up till later. Or especially with my mom growing up, right? Like, when I explained to them, like, what would happen. Oh, me and my mom got in a fight, or she said this, I said this, or can you believe this? My mom said this to me. And they would just be like, okay, just don't listen to her. Just don't let her bother you. Just don't let her, whatever. And I could see where they were coming from, but the disconnect was, what are you telling yourself so that her words are not hurting you, because with my mom, I had nowhere to go. It's not like I could just walk away. It's not like I could just tell her to stop or to, that was a very difficult situation because I had nowhere to go. So really it was just up to what I was telling myself at the time. And because that was my setup, I did not grow up with boundaries, right? So now, in sitting with my trauma, I'm like, oh shit, this is why boundaries are so hard for me. I had none with me and my mom. My God, this therapist, I should quote her. I should put her on the tab because she told me it's emotional incest. She's like, you and your mom have emotional incest. She's like, you are not her therapist. I was my mom's therapist growing up. She told me everything. I was her. We were each other. We just, she needed me and I didn't even realize it. Our situation was so stressful. She needed support. And I was that support at 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. Not old enough to be any adult support system. She needed another adult, but my dad wasn't there. So I took that foundation to other relationships, and I excused people's behavior with what I told myself, because I literally told myself in some way that it was my fault, or I don't know if it was like I was telling myself that it was my fault, or that I was just making an excuse because of the no boundaries. See, that's the part that I'm still, trying to figure out about myself. Because in healing, it's like a self-reflective thing. Yeah, I don't know with that one. I don't know. But I've definitely been, doing a lot more self-reflection. You learn so much about yourself. In the book, The Gift, that's probably the biggest thing I took away from that book. It's like, yes, I was the victim, but you still, I don't know, it's like you can still learn and grow. There's still, you could still learn and grow, yet instill in that, just because you're the victim doesn't mean you're infallible, and that it's just all them, not you. You still have growth there. And that's what I'm finding. So I'm trying to talk to myself positively. I watch how I speak to myself out loud, how I talk to myself in my head. When people do things and it makes me feel a way, I really try to be mindful about what am I telling myself? What's the narrative here? What are the connections that my brain is making? Or is this a trauma response? Is this, just really trying to be more mindful in situations and just slow down, especially with my freezing. You lose time when you freeze. You really do. So I'm trying to be more in the present moment and be in tune with myself. And if you've experienced any type of trauma and you're kind of in this stage of healing where you're kind of reflecting on what's next, dive into your passions. Dive into whatever you're passionate about, whatever makes you happy, whatever inspires and motivates you. Because I don't know, I've also been going through like this identity crisis thing where I'm like, who am I? Going through trauma, you lose yourself. So finding myself again, writing, going back into my passions and my goals, no matter how small, are just so proactive. And yeah, I just really appreciate you guys reaching out and staying in touch as I do these check-ins and updates with you on my mental health. I'm learning and growing with you guys, and it's just so helpful. So yeah, please be kind with yourself as you sit with your trauma.